Of all the chapters in this title, this next one just may be the funnest one of all. We really get to be creative as we explore the interactive tools here in CorelDRAW X4. We'll start in this lesson by looking at the interactive fill tool for applying fills and making changes on the fly. That's the interactive part. Then we'll move on to blending objects together, adding contours. We'll be looking at distortions and shadows, and we'll explore extruding objects a little bit more before we move on to applying a transparency to an object. So we're going to work with this file that I've already opened up. If you've got the exercise files, go to your Lesson 11 folder and open up interactivetools1.cdr. You'll see it's a 7-page file. I've got 1 of 7 showing up here because I am on page 1, which is where we're going to apply our interactive fill. So we'll go over to the toolbox over here on the left and go just below the fill tool that we talked about in a previous lesson. Here we know we can select from different kinds of fills, gradients and textures and patterns and so on. But right below that is the interactive fill tool. Now if I don't have an object already selected, I can click on the interactive fill tool and then select the object just by clicking inside it. You'll see the little nodes appear at each point here in our star. Now it's just a matter of applying the interactive fill, and we do that by clicking and dragging. So I'm just going to go from the left out here to the right, and when I let go you can see what happens. By default I'm applying a linear fill. I actually see that up here on my property bar. You can see the colors are going from black to white, and that's why it appears darker on the left and lighter on the right hand side. There's the colors on my property bar. You can see the percentage is split 50-50, so I've got this slider up here for my fountain fill. I can also adjust the angles and the percentages from here and the steps. Also, I've got some options down here. This is the interactive part I was telling you about. If I wanted to change the angle, I could drag this down. I'm going to drag it down to this point and drag the white box up on kind of like a 45-degree angle. I'm going to bring it in a little bit so you can see it lightens. If I bring this in towards the point, it darkens. The further I go inside the star, the more darkness. I'm going to go right out to the point though. And I can also use this slider to change the percentage. If I want more white, I'll drag it towards the darkness so I get more light. It's not 50-50 anymore, it's 28% black, and of course you'd have to do a little bit of math to figure out that it's 72% white. I can go the opposite direction using my slider, and you can see how it's just interactive. I'm going to adjust this a little bit further. I'm going to bring it back almost level, and I'm going to show you some other options through the property bar now. Let's change it from linear down to a uniform fill. Now as soon as I do that, you can see it's just filled with black, and that's really the same as using my fill tool or just clicking on the object and choosing black or some other shade over here in my palette. So let's change that to a more interactive format. I'm going to go down to conical. I like that. You can see how there's almost like a point in the center. The default color is still being used, going from black to white, but here's where we get to have some fun. We're going to change up the colors, and we're going to add some as well. So I'm going to leave white over here on the right, and I'm going to go over to this cyan, and I'm going to drag it to the dotted line on the arc, but right just below this point here, in line with the point. And when I let go, you can see how it's going from blue to white and from black to that blue. Let's go add some white. We'll add it about here where it kind of lines up with the valley in my star. And when I let go, right on the dotted line, I think you can see what's happening here. We'll go back to cyan. Put it up here in line with the top point. Drag white into this next valley right on the dotted line and let go. All right, back we go to cyan. And one more. I'm going to go to white and change the black over here to white just by dropping it inside the box. And you can see the effect that we just created here thanks to the interactive fill tool. Now when we're done, we just click on our pick tool, deselect to see the end result. And that's really creative. And it was very interactive, so it wasn't a lot of trial and error. We're able to use sliders and click and drag things around until we get it looking exactly like we want it to. And then, of course, adding a little bit of color really changed the appearance of this object. So I would encourage you to create many different types of objects. It doesn't have to be a star, and experiment with the different fills using your interactive fill tool. Next, we're going to move on to blending objects together.